It's official. It's Chris Grimm. This is Deep Work Fast. Every Tuesday at 3 o'clock Pacific time on LinkedIn and on Facebook, I am here to give you tools, concepts, ideas, sometimes worksheets, etc., that you can download so that you can be your best in all the roles that you play at home and at work. And if you think about that, right, you're playing a lot of roles all the time, and I want you to be great in all of them. I didn't say perfect, but I want you to be your best. And so I know life doesn't let that happen very easily, which is why I'm bringing you tools, etc. So let's jump in. This week, instead of dropping a blog, we have a new downloadable workbook on our website. Heather will put the link in the chat. Thank you, Mission Control. And thank you, Mission Control, Heather and Jamie Amesworth on our team for creating beautiful materials. Like I have an idea or whatever, and they make things. It's awesome. So props to them. So what we're working on here is shadow self integration, sometimes called shadow work. Now, I know, and you probably have heard me say this before, that it is common for people, specifically when I'm coaching them in a work environment, which is what I've been doing for 28 years, for people not to know what that is unless in therapy they have worked on it with a therapist who does shadow work. But it's become Instagrammable. So this concept, this term, if you will, and the work associated with it is kind of all over the internet. And I find that there are programs and materials who, they're actually doing quite well, and they're probably built by therapists and people who know what they're doing. And then, of course, there are some that are really quite shallow and give you a taste of it, but don't give you an understanding about how to bring that into practical use in your life without help. So what I thought is I wanted to create and deploy some tools, specifically because I coach a lot of people in the context of work, that we can take these concepts and bring them into an understanding so that you can understand, why would you even care about this? We've been doing it all along, by the way. So if you've been coaching with me or people on our team, the idea of shadow work just means that you are exploring, potentially embracing, instead of ignoring and resisting or denying, the parts of you that you don't like. Maybe they've been with you a long time and you have tried to reject those things. We'll talk about some of them in a minute because I'm going to take you through this worksheet, this workbook. But this is what happens in our life, right? So just take away all the labels. And I just want you to focus on this as a truth, right? We all have the parts of us that make us great. They are healthy. They are expressed in healthy ways. And they help us have functional, productive, high trust relationships with people. And then there are some of those same traits that when we express them either in an unhealthy way or we try to ignore them, we repress, we hold it in, we withhold it, that's not healthy. And so it becomes a shadow. And the reason why this is meaningful, and I just want to say, people might be saying, why do you care about this, Chris? Well, the reason I care is because when I coach people, we start coaching with an assessment. If you've been with me in coaching, you know this. All of our coaches do discovery in the beginning, which means most of the time 360-degree feedback. It means we ask other people, with your permission, how you're doing. If you're in leadership development, it's a critical part of development for us to do what's called multi-rater feedback. And in that process, people either tell us stories, if it's an interview, or even on an assessment tool, if you will, which is an assessment on a platform or on paper, where they're asked very, very specifically, what does this person do well? What does this person not do well? And so we very clearly get a picture of what's working and what's not working, but also then you and I get to get a picture of what you know about yourself and the things that you don't know about yourself that might be a blind spot for you, or something that other people know that you either don't know or you've just been ignoring it for so long, that you either forgotten about it or it's just not as important as other things. So I do want to take you through this. Our workbook is called The Hidden You, Embracing the Shadow for Wholeness. So back to what I was just saying, oftentimes there are ways we behave, traits that we have that are either annoying to other people or they're just unhealthy and unproductive, but it's called the hidden you because you may not be aware of it or you're trying to hide it. So, what our workbook does, if you've downloaded it, great. If you haven't yet, just follow along with me. You could even get a pen and paper if you wanted to and make some notes for yourself. No one else has to see this. And of course, we're on a format here, so you don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to admit it to me. And if you're mad at me, you can say that too, and I won't know. Unless you put it in the chat. Okay, so the first part of it, so page 1 goes through the 10 most common traits that we learn are often, we learn in assessment and we learn in coaching. And then of course in therapy, most likely, if you're in therapy, you would be talking about these traits that often can be expressed both in a healthy way or in unhealthy ways. The first one is of course anger. It's a really great one to start with because everybody gets angry. And so when we express it, when we know how to express it in healthy ways, in other words, we can use our words, we can express our dissatisfaction and anger with people in a way that doesn't create drama. It doesn't create more problems, right? We have the original issue we're mad about. But if we can express it in a way that's kind of adult and we have language that we can use your words, and we can do it without kind of uh, pushing and projecting all of our intense emotions on other people, then they might be able to actually hear it. And then we can resolve the issue. But like I said, when it's unhealthy and it's coming from our shadow, and what I find a lot when I'm with executives, but also when I'm coaching people outside of work, is that if in fact in your home, expressing anger and expressing emotions wasn't something everybody learned to do in a healthy way, like maybe emotions that were uncomfortable weren't welcome. And so in your family of origin, right, where you grew up, maybe those emotions were just dismissed, or maybe they were handled in ways that were unhealthy. In fact, one of the other things on this list, I'm pretty sure that we put it on this list, is manipulation. Yep, it's in there. If you go through the list, by the way, the number 1 thing is anger. The number 2 thing is jealousy. We'll talk through all these. Number 3 is greed. Number 4 is control. Number 5 is shame. Number 6 is fear. Number 7 is perfectionism. Number 8 is manipulation. I'm going to come back and put these together for you. Number 9 is judgment. And number 10 is martyrdom. So all of these things, like I was saying, could be expressed in healthy, productive ways. And all of these things can be a shadow when in our homes we didn't learn by our caretakers, our siblings, our family, how to express them in healthy ways. And so when we don't have healthy outlets, when we don't know how to be all of these character, like let them come out of us in healthy ways instead of like repressing, ignoring, or like I said, using some of them so that we can avoid the expression. So I want to come back to what I was saying about anger before I went through the list. Anger is number 1 because it's the most common, right? Everybody gets angry. We've all been getting angry our whole lives. And anger is often an emotion that we can't tolerate, specifically in the workplace, if you think about it. But even in our homes, sometimes we don't like it. It can feel really, really bad when anger is expressed in big, intense, explosive ways. sometimes in volatile ways, right? When it's really, really unhealthy and you have lots of unresolved conflicts, it builds up over time and it can be like a volcano sometimes for people. And that makes it a shadow aspect, right? It makes it a part of us that we can even become ashamed of it. So if you think about what happens is that if you're either in a home or in a workplace where expressing anger is not allowed, and I've worked with lots of teams where maybe the boss and the workplace, they like everything to be nice and they like everything to be politically correct and buttoned up. And while that is, professional and we want that, it isn't always realistic when people get mad and people get mad. And so if we don't also have a way for people to process their emotions and the ability for people to take time to process, maybe get away from a situation and come back when they're feeling put together, then sometimes people get explosive in the meetings, and that is usually not tolerated and it becomes bad behavior, right? So this is why it's meaningful to me that you are aware of this about yourself, because when we get in coaching, oftentimes people are either aware of it and hiding it, or they are unaware of these things. And ignoring them does not make them go away. Faking it does not make any of these things go away. In fact, the only way for you to tame these, so I want you to learn that term because that's how I think about our shadows. I don't want to erase it. And I don't want you to think that way either. I want you to imagine that we can tame any of the shadow aspects that you have, that maybe you've had forever, by acknowledging that they're there, deciding that we're going to embrace those things. Like, why do I have all that anger built up? Why do I sometimes need to be in control of stuff, maybe overly in control? Like, why do I overfunction and have to control everything all the time? It's only healthy to a point. And then after a certain point, if other people are resisting it and you're still trying to control, not helpful, right? That's the shadow part of it. You think about fear, manipulation, like I talked about before. Oftentimes what happens, like I said, some of these work together to become your kind of shadow persona or your archetype, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Because sometimes I find and I meet people who have, if you have the list I just said, or just if you're just listening to me, it's fine. But the way this list comes together is they all start to work together, right? So let's say you have anger that's built in over years. And then you are afraid, fear is one of them too, that anger is going to come out. And there's people in the workplace that on a regular basis piss you off, right? They don't open your emails. You know they're coming to this meeting to shoot down your idea, whatever it is, right? But you know it's going to happen. And so now you have fear and potentially shame that you know sooner or later here, it's going to be explosive. And so you're afraid of it because for whatever reason, you don't have the tools, maybe without getting help, to process that anger and think about productive, healthy ways of either confronting the other people involved who you're afraid are going to do or say things that are going to make you mad. Maybe you don't think you have the time or the tools, right? And so all of these things start to work together. It means we start judging other people, criticizing the other people so we can maybe try and take away some of the shame we feel that we're this angry. Maybe that we can't speak truth. And so we manipulate, which sometimes has lying in there. We create situations, martyrdom. I see leaders do it all the time. They're overworked. They're trying to control everything. They don't trust the other people around them. They're super angry about it. But saying that out loud is not popular because they want to be a person on the team like, I trust everybody. Everything's great. It's not. And then they fall into the martyrdom category, which means they self-sacrifice, right? Even though they're resentful and they're angry and they've got all these things that are built up under the surface, but because they're not embracing it and they're not getting the tools they need to integrate. And integrate means we accept that these things exist. And instead of letting it hide under the surface and pretending like they don't exist, we get the tools and we get some coaching or we get some therapy and we start to do new things. We think about our shadow traits in new ways. We start proactively saying, okay, you know what? I'm not going to wait until my anger explodes anymore. I'm going to prepare for conversations where I know the person might make me mad. And maybe that person's going to make me mad on purpose. Maybe they're a person who lies or they poke you, right? Or in the workplace, it's highly political and that person kind of has it out for you. Whatever the story is you have in your head, whether it's real or not real, I want you to know, for you to be at your best, you've got to know what feelings are bubbling underneath the surface and how you're thinking about it. And if you are actively thinking about it or not. And that's why I gave you a little worksheet. So if you actually have this, you downloaded it, great. If not, you could just write down, based on what I was just saying, which of those shadow traits that I just went through with you resonated with you. Like you go, oh yeah, I do that. Right? Do you avoid being angry? Are you ashamed because maybe in the past you had some explosive moments and you don't want your boss to see that. You don't want your family to see that. And so you repress it. Maybe you sacrifice yourself because you don't want to get angry. You don't want to be the bad person, and bad in your mind is someone who gets super mad and tells the truth about people who aren't doing their job or whatever. And then what feelings come up from that, right? Like I said, sometimes a common theme is people say, you know what, I cried in a meeting once and I never want to do that again. And so now I just suck it up. Like I just listen to everything that's going on. I know it's complete BS, but I don't express that in the meeting because I don't want the boss and other people to see that I'm the person who thinks this is all stupid. And so in the meeting, I suck it all up and I just try to be neutral or I try to be positive. And then after the meeting, I go and talk to the people who are safe and express myself. That's not healthy, friends. That's not great teaming behavior, but it's just not you at your best, right? You at your best is being able to speak truth in a neutral to positive way so that people can hear it and we can resolve the issues so they don't just keep going on and on and on, creating drama. So you should know that about yourself. Dying live on LinkedIn and Facebook today. Not really. Okay, so the other part of this worksheet that I would love for you to do, and so if you haven't downloaded this PDF, this is the kind of PDF where you can actually push the buttons. You don't even have to print it out if you don't want. Thank you, Heather. And this talks about archetypes. So like I was saying to you, first of all, in psychology, Carl Jung, a very long time ago, which is a grandfather of modern psychology, came up with what he said are the main archetypes. And those are kind of the clustered characteristics or the characters that we've all seen in movies and TV, etc. But they're also a part of our psyche. And so an example of that is the hero or the witch, the stepmother, the angry boss, right? The superhero or the poor victim. All of those things are a part of our psyche. Like we know what those characters are, which is why in entertainment, a lot of the stories are kind of like they're all the same story, but they're not, right? But it's predictable. You know what those characters are going to do most of the time. So shadow archetypes are the shadow side of those characters. And so what I'd like you to do is download the freebie. It's free. We don't send a lot of junk mail, so don't worry. I just want you to get these tools, get it, go through it, and just be honest with yourself and create some awareness around which of these archetypes are kind of naturally a part of your brand, your brand, right? So really quickly, these shadow archetypes are the trickster, right? So the bad part, the unhealthy version, is cunning and lying, deceitful, unpredictable, right? Now, sometimes in the movies, we see a trickster that's funny. It's someone who plays tricks and is mischievous. But think about it. When it goes shadow self, when it's unproductive, it's lying and it's deceitful. There's also the saboteur. And the saboteur is the person who tries to sabotage things and often in the process is actually self-destructive. So that's the bad part. The victim is the person who is powerless and is sometimes taken advantage of. The prostitute, I'm not talking about sex right now, although I could be talking about that. But the archetype of the prostitute is anybody who sells out, right? Selling out your integrity, selling out your values, selling out your principles, settling. That's that archetype. The shadow lover, now that is about sex, encompasses hidden taboo desires, lust, unhealthy expression of sexual energy, which sometimes doesn't even have to do with sex, by the way. It could just be maybe someone who seduces people and uses their sexuality to manipulate people or to get what they want. Shadow. Okay, the Avenger, not the movie one. Avengers are people who seek revenge when it's unhealthy. That's an archetype. The addict, addictive behavior, someone who goes way over the line in the use of anything, by the way, shopping addiction. I know you might have gone to addictions to alcohol and drugs, and of course those are addictions. But sometimes the addict is addicted to attention. Sometimes people are addicted to money. Like I said, shopping is a great porn. Sometimes people are addicted to their work. And when it's unhealthy, well, it's not helping. We gotta work on that. Last one is the shadow warrior. So, being a warrior is great when it's healthy. But it goes into the shadow when it's too aggressive, it's too violent. Maybe when it's dominant, when they're just fighting for power, they're not actually fighting for the common good. So I want you to learn about this, not because I want you to do anything crazy, and I don't want you to diagnose other people. I am teaching this to you, for you. I want you to have awareness that these things exist. I want you to try and do this with a non-judgmental mind, by the way, which means don't beat yourself up. Get awareness, start to see it in yourself. Maybe start to take it out of the shadows. And then what you'll find yourself doing, I know I'm over time. Wow, I'm really over time. But what you'll find yourself doing, and I want to end this well for you so that you know how to use this. As you start to recognize these things in yourself, it loses its power over you. Let me say it again. As you get awareness, as any one of us get awareness of these things, where we can admit it to people who are safe, like, I think I get too angry, or I'm afraid of being angry because I think I'm going to explode. Being able to say that to people you trust and who are safe takes the power away from your shadow and actually starts to help you think about more productive responses proactively before the shadow comes out and then we regret it and have to deal with that later. So again, I want you to be your best at work and at home. Sorry, I went so far off the reservation today, 4 minutes late. Grab this workbook if you don't already have the link. Heather has it here in the chat. I'm dedicated to helping you. So when you're ready, grab it, do the work, and I'll see you next week. Bye.